Hello and welcome all to the Printeract Session 2. This is our second public interaction series with printmakers and the community. As you know, these sessions are a platform to engage with the printmakers across the world to know about their studio practice and allied actions that lead to a social practice connecting the larger community. Today we have two very eminent artists and academicians as our guest speakers whose practice majorly stems from the medium of printmaking, but over the years their explorations have stretched beyond, embracing newer possibilities of creativity and self-reflections. Today's guests are Kanchan Chander joining us from Delhi, India, and Anita Jung joining us from Iowa in USA. Kanchan Chander is a Delhi-based senior artist and academician, having taught innumerable students at Delhi College of Art from 1986 to 2005, and later the School of Planning and Architecture from 1990 to 91. She is alumnus of premier institutions like Weinzins Kunsthochschule in Berlin, College of Art in Delhi, College of Art Santiago in Chile, and École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. During her long career as an artist, she was felicitated with research grants and fellowships from Delhi Lalit Kala Academy, the French Government Scholarship, Junior and Senior Research Fellowship from Ministry of Human Resources and Development, and the British Council grant to visit art institutions in London. In 2016, she made presentations of her work at American institutions like the University of Connecticut, the School of Art Institution of Chicago, and the Mills College, Berkeley. She has served as a member of advisory committee for the National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi from 2019 to 22, and also for the second print biennale initiated by the Delhi Lalit Kala Academy in 2021. The feminine body pres- features as a prominent icon in the work of Kanchan Chander, fascinated by mythological figurines of Indian temple sculptures and those from other traditions, she creates forms of empowered femininity shaped in power, violence, and sensuality. Her work have been acquired by museums like National Gallery of Modern Art and Kiran Nadan Museum in Delhi, the British Museum and Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, Fukuoka Art Museum in Japan, Museum of Sacred Arts in Belgium. They are also part of several private collections in India and abroad. Anita Jung is a professor in the print program at the University of Iowa in the US. Previously, she has taught printmaking, drawing, and installation courses at the University of Tennessee and the Ohio University. Anita holds a master's degree in graphics from the University of Wisconsin Madison and a bachelor's degree in painting and drawing from Arizona State University. Over a 30-year career, Anita has widely exhibited in the United States and abroad. She has participated in numerous national and international print portfolio exchanges, and her work is currently part of many public and private art collections. She is regularly invited as visiting artist and artist residence at places like Proyecto Ace in Argentina, Chap Printmaking Trust in Baroda, Lily Press in Maryland, Signal Written in Detroit, and Sputnik Press in Chicago. She has published papers and made presentations at conferences like the SGC International, the Mid America Print Council, and the International Multidisciplinary Printmaking. Professor Jung is a trained rape crisis counselor and domestic violence advocate. Those experiences transitioned to focus upon creative actions intended to build stronger communities. Her interdisciplinary collaborative work began as investigations regarding violence towards women and the AIDS crisis, resulting in major pieces and events at venues like Spaces in Cleveland, Ohio, and the Peace Museum in Chicago to raise awareness. Her recent work is situated within the tradition of abstraction, creating work out of cast of materials. In 2022, Anita was uh, awarded the Senior Scholar Fulbright Nehru Fellowship, which resulted in her current research incorporating printmaking processes with natural indigo dyes. Her explorations into the intersections between fine art and craft traditions was awarded by the Iowa Arts Council Project Grant in 23-24 to investigate further with this research. I welcome both of you today in our question answer session for Printeract session 2.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, my first question is that the feminine voice features very prominently in both of your works. What was it like to find your standing as a woman artist, mother, and educator working in the medium of printmaking? My question is to both of you, starting with Kanchan and then following it to Anita.
Well, things were very different. I'm talking about the early 80s when I left college and joined Gary. I started as a printmaker and painter. I mean, in those days there were no printmaking specializations. So I was doing painting with printmaking under the guidance of Anupam Sood, who was my guru. And I continued with printmaking because I didn't have a studio, printmaking studio at home. So I used to live very near Gary Studios, and I joined Gary and I did printmaking there for very long, and it was nice. But then when my son was born and my parents were getting old, and I could not continue going there because I had a full time job. So circumstances made me go into painting. I would do prints, but at a very smaller sort of a thing. But as a woman, I think I have always portrayed women. Earlier it was the full figure, and then later it went on to torsos, and very recently it is now the crouched figure, which is my forte. And also Frida Kahlo and Amrita Shergill have highly influenced me, so I'm incorporating them in my works.
And Anita, would you like to share your journey as well?
Sure. I was very fortunate in my studies to have had a woman named Adele Henderson came in as a visiting artist when I was an undergraduate. And then in my graduate work, I was able to study with Fran Myers. And they were very influential in terms of being able to model how to balance things in many ways. But it was very difficult. But I think that making art and coming from a place that you know is really important. And so I felt like that was something I could give voice to, and it was something that I understood very strongly. Just being a woman, and then eventually when I became a mom, like all of that, it would be impossible, I think, to keep out of my work. To be my authentic self, if it meant that I had to talk about my concerns and what I was seeing and experiencing in the world.
Yes. My next question is for Kanchan. So, your shaping of the voluptuous female torsos, which we are seeing from the 80s onwards, so in the backdrop of the conservative Delhi society of that time, how was it received?
Well, mostly it was received well, but then there were lots of articles which were coming out there talking about female nudes. But my figures were never nudes. If I made a torso, I would later on I would embellish it with floral patterns and all. But somehow they put me in the category of doing female nudes, so it's okay. I was okay with it. But they were voluptuous because I am a bit bulky. My mother was a very good model, and very often you will see her in the prints and paintings. So she was also quite bulky, and I was very much influenced by Henry Moore's sculptures. So all that sort of just made me. I could not do skinny women. I felt that the voluptuousness in itself contains a lot. It contains it says so much. It contains sensitivity, sensuousness, motherhood, fertility. So I was happy doing it. And even now I think I'm working on sort of, I wouldn't say voluptuous, but they are quite bulky women. Like I said, I can't do thin women.
No, I've always loved your work for making it so beautiful in the skin, and that's something that we have always appreciated in your work. I'm sure many people also have appreciated it in a similar way.
Thank you.
My next question is, both of you have been teaching in art institutions for a very long time. How did you negotiate time to parallelly devote in the developing of your own studio practice?
So Anita?
Well, I would say not well. I think it's a very difficult thing to do, but really trying to create flow is important. I have learned that to teach what I'm interested in, to teach what I'm working on, and the students do seem to flourish with that. That I'm very fortunate that I've taught at very good institutions that have supported faculty creating classes that they want to teach and being able to learn as I'm teaching. I think that's been the greatest gift, is the fact that when I'm in a classroom, with 15 students, there are 15 people conducting research. And, I know that we're all going to walk away with very different things, but it's really exciting and beneficial.
Well, I was teaching in the painting department, and unfortunately, I never got the chance to get the printmaking department. That was unfortunate. But I think it's women are multitaskers. They are time managers. I mean, I would do a full time job, of course, try to run away a little earlier when this college finished closed. I would look after my old parents. I was looking after my child, and I realized that he was dyslexic at the age of 11. So I was managing all that, and I was also socializing. So people could not understand that what does she eat or drink that she has so much energy. They just could not accept the fact. And of course, there were lots of people who were anti me. That's fine. I think that's part of the journey. And I think that motivated me more. That motivated me more to carry on. And I was very focused. Even now, now that things are much more peaceful, and my son is also an artist, he's carrying on. I'm focused. I'm just focused on my work. My agenda is just to work. So I think I'm a workaholic. So somehow I just squeeze in and take out time. So I think we women are quite strong, right, Anita?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So the next question is like, where did you develop your prints? I know you have Kanchan, you have already partially answered it, So, where did you develop your prints, and did you have access to community studio or a personal print studio?
Actually, I like I said that I started in, I think I was in the second or third year when Sood had joined, and I was, I think, one of her first batches. So it was there. Then later on, when I left, I joined the Guri Studios. I was fortunate to be like 10 minutes walk away, and then I got a scholarship in Paris, École des Beaux-Arts, to do etching, but somehow technically there was a little problem and they put me into lithography, which was a blessing in disguise. So I did lithography there. And when I was studying in Chile as a guest student, again, I wrote etching, but they put me in dry point. So, like it was both of it, I took it positively. So I learned all these mediums on my own. But I must say that the younger generation today is much more smarter than us. Many of them, when I hear, they say that, ma'am, we have bought a press. I feel very proud, but at the same time I feel a little jealous that why didn't I think of it earlier. So earlier there was, I had a press but I sold it off. I mean, I don't have a press at home, so that is why I'm at the mercy of. But like what we said earlier, the willpower is so strong that I still continue with my printmaking.
And Anita?
Well, I did buy my own press when I was in graduate school, which I actually traded with a manufacturer for artwork. And so, because I felt that that was super important, but I also did a lot of work and did workshops about printmaking without a press and using all of these sort of taking different techniques in a sort of subverting them and eliminating the press, and how do you do all these different transfers. And because at that point I was doing a lot of appropriation, dealing with men's idea of feminine beauty, so I was appropriating a lot of imagery from different male artists, particularly in the Renaissance. And so I had a press, but I've also always had lovely facilities at the university as I've worked at. And what's been exciting to me to see in the US is these small community presses coming forward. Helen Fredericks on this call, and she was somebody who's really instrumental. She was the director at Pyramid Atlantic for many years, and she invited me in right after I was in graduate school and sort of gave me that support. And Pyramid was a model that I think then a lot of people, Anchor Graphics, and these are larger presses, but now I think it's very common, and I see this happening in India, which is super exciting, is that artists are just opening up their ateliers and beginning to create a community press situation where people can have access to equipment. And then it helps them to afford the equipment. So it's a very symbiotic, very healthy relationship.
So, what could be according to you, what could be the plus points or challenges of practicing the medium of printmaking in community print studios?
Your mistakes are very public. I mean, you have to make a lot of bad art to get to the good art, right? And so, but it's also a really supportive atmosphere. And so when you're there, just devastated by this horrible thing you've just created, you have other people to come and talk you down and say, hey, wait a minute, this part might be okay. Don't go crazy out with the bad part. So, so I think it's a give and take, and you just have to understand, and you have to be adaptable. I mean, sometimes if you need a lot of space, you're gonna get there. You're gonna get there at 6 o'clock in the morning and start working, and other artists want to be there at midnight. So.
And Kanchan,
I
what about
think as community studios, there are pros and cons. The pros are that you don't have to look after the maintenance. It's being done by whoever is heading it, and there is no mess. All you have to do is clean up your area. But there are pros and cons. For example, when I came back from Chile, I started working with woodcut on ply, and Professor Jez Rotia inspired me to do that. So I did these woodcuts on ply, and the advantage was in a way that a lot of other people saw that, and they adopted that medium. And then what I did was I would not throw the wood block. In the end, the wood block would look so nice, and I would just paint it, and it would be like a painterly wood block. So, and the second disadvantage in a way is that there is no element of surprise when you're exhibiting, because there are some clever people around you who sort of take away our ideas. But I suppose that's part of the game. That's part of the game. But it's nice to share. It's nice to share. I'm glad that I remember when I came back from Chile, I did spit biting on copper plate. So then a lot of people started spit biting after that. So there are a lot of, and also I saw other people doing things and I adopted from there also. So it was vice versa. So these are the pros and cons, I feel.
Okay. And with time, you both have explored printmaking beyond its conventional definition of edition making. So, what inspired this move ahead?
Anita?
Well, not having sometimes you don't, you're an artist first and foremost, and so if you have access to facilities, you will work in those facilities. I began doing installation. A lot of it was just about wanting to travel and make art as I was traveling, and installation, giving someone an experience, putting them in a space. That was something that I was very excited about. I have been exploring more intersections between painting and printmaking now, because I think these medium defined ideas about art are they're completely manufactured. They're just in our heads. I'm a painter, I'm a printmaker. Well, you are, and I'm, but we're artists and we work with materials. And so the materials we work with are the ones that make the most sense. And so I have been switching and doing a lot of Mokahanga printing, because what's been guiding me are my values at this point of really wanting to have less negative impact on the environment in the world. And that's why I stopped the installations with so much stuff, and I don't tend to show the same work over and over, especially with installation. And so it was piling up in my studio, or it was going to go into a dumpster and then eventually into a landfill. And I had to, as a political person, I had to take stock in my own hypocrisy and minimize that footprint. And then I've been doing a lot with fabric. In part, I'm interested. It's such a malleable medium, but it's so much less expensive for students and for myself to be able to work large if you're working on fabric. So life and values, I think, inform me quite a bit.
Well, I think, like what you mentioned earlier, I was initially the member of IPG, Indian Printmakers Guild. And Indian Printmakers Guild contributed a lot to the scene of print scenario. I mean, they did a fabulous job. But at the same time, I was traveling a lot also. So when I went to UK, I saw these prints being made in a studio by Jim Dime, I think it was, who was making prints and incorporating ribbons and stickers on every print. So I came back and I gave this idea to my peers and to my friends in IPG, but there was some, you can say 50% agreed to it, but 50% said, no, 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 no. This is just not possible. You cannot add anything to prints. Print is print. It's traditional. It's pure. So there was this debate going on. So I'm talking about when was it? Early 90s. But I think now that is being done. You're getting digital print, and earlier I was painting on the prints. I was also adding things on the prints, and I even sort of added them on boxes. I even added them on a torso. My leftover prints, which were not good quality, and on rice paper, I added them on a physical torso. So it was a torsos on torso. So I think that open-mindedness was not so much in India at that time. Even now, there are two school of thoughts. I mean, I respect both. I don't say there's anything against it, but I think one should also move with times. There is traditional printmaking, but then there is also printmaking which is advanced. So I think we should accept that.
It's funny hearing you speak about that, Kanchan. I never, I never had the rules. I broke the rules before I knew the rules. And then it was too late. Because the first print, it was a terrible print. And I just drew and painted all over it.
See?
And I remember, bringing it to, this Wayne Kimball, amazing, lovely person, Cameron Master Printer. And he's just looking at this. And he's like, that's, you can do it.
That's wonderful. So as they say, rules are meant to be broken sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And how did the fellowships, the grants, and awards that both of you have received, how did they benefit in the continuity of your practice as an artist and printmaker?
Well, I have not got many awards, so I don't think I'm the right person to answer that. But whatever awards I got,
Fellowships and
I
fellowships.
mean, I got a fellowship to go to France where I learned lithography. I would have never done lithography, but due to my back problem, I can't do lithography now. And in Chile, like I said earlier, I was introduced to dry point and spit biting and working on copper plates. So I think it's always nice. And I've attended a lot of art camps and art workshops. So very often, that's the whole idea about this community, workshops that we share with each other. So very often, I have adapted things which I saw, and very often it's vice versa. So I think there are always advantages.
And Anita?
But for me in my early career, they were lifelines. I mean, they were how I, stayed sheltered and fed and continued to work. So I was very lucky in my early career. I got a Mid-America Art Council grant. And the funding in the U.S. is not good for artists. It's really difficult. But we do have, like I was saying earlier, we do have a new rising sort of phenomenon of residencies that I see that is really helping the new generation coming up, which is exciting. And I think artists taking charge of artists. But I don't think that people can underestimate even, small grants can really help artists to continue to make their art, and because it's very, very difficult. And so that's been, and it's also very affirming. It's like, oh, okay, I won this award in this show or this whatever. And, I don't tend to do that as much now, but that was really helpful in my early career. And even now, just getting an award, it allows me to do more ambitious projects and to include more. The project grant that I wrote does have a component where I want to work with educators, K through 12 art teachers, and working with them doing natural dye. I live in a very farm agricultural state. And so, to use the materials around us, these are lessons I learned from India. It's like local sources, local materials, with a lot of the different NGOs trying to assist people. So I think that is really helpful. I think artists benefit society. And so these different grants and awards actually are investing in community. And I think culture is really important.
Indeed. And also, the next question is also for you, Anita. So, you have been instrumental in developing interdisciplinary collaborative work and community based projects. So, please share the concerns which prompted this in the first place and the challenges you have dealt with in bringing them into fruition.
Well, I think that I think people like art. I think that they're interested in art. I think they're intimidated by art. And so to sort of take away some of those barriers is really important. I don't view art as entertainment. I don't feel, I mean, art has always been really hard for me. It takes a lot of effort and energy, and but to involve people in projects, to give voice and to build that community, can be really exciting and really beneficial, and it can be just simple things. It's almost like an armature, and the real art is not what is put on display. The real art is what is happening in the making. It's what, and as printmakers, we are very privileged in getting to experience this. Those small conversations that happen at the press, that happen in the studio. You know, as Kanchan was saying, just being influenced, looking over and seeing what someone's doing and being like, oh, that's the missing link. You know, you're not gonna, it's not copying, it's not even emulate, but all of a sudden it connects.
Yeah.
And so trying to do that, and unfortunately, I think people decide at a very young age what they're good at and what they're not good at, and they impose those ideas upon themselves for the rest of their lives. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, I enjoy this. I might not be, good at this, and I don't know what that means. Like good at something or not good, or when you really look at that in an expanded way, what does that mean? But if they find pleasure in community, and I think art can help people to connect and meet one another, it can foster those communities, and it also can make those communities appreciate the artists that are in their neighborhoods.
Right. Kanchan, what was your experience of visiting art institutions in the US? How was the response to your work from students and the art fraternity over there?
You mean outside India?
Yes.
Well, Paris was starting from Paris. It was very nice. Like for example, I was not very, comfortable with lithography, but somehow I managed to do quite a lot. So it was nice. And the first 3 months, it was a 1 year scholarship. The first 3 months, I didn't do anything. I was just like a sponge taking in all that was Paris was offering me. And then later in Chile, in Santiago, it again sort of working with the different artists and sort of talking with them and their culture. For example, I was in, like I said, I'm very much influenced by my surroundings. When I was in Paris, I did a series on the French noses, and I did a series on the punks. And in Chile, I did of Chilean men and Chilean women. The man with the hat and a pipe and all that. So for me, the atmosphere where I am really influences me. And and I love talking, I love socializing. So I always like to interact with the people there. So in a way, there was an influence which came in, and it stayed on. Like when I came back from Paris, it stayed on for some time. I made more noses. When I came back from Chile, I made some more Chilean faces. So it stayed, but that was a phase.
And Anita, what was your experience of visiting artists and art institutions in India? How did the experience benefit your journey as an artist?
Oh, I think in some ways it's almost too plentiful to even like, to name, because I've been very fortunate to have been able to travel a lot. It's something that I love it. It makes a lot of sense to me, living out of suitcases.
The next question I have is Anita, how is the response to prints as an art form among galleries, museums, and art collectors in the US? Is it difficult for prints to get acceptance and connoisseurship as compared to other media?
Yes, I think so. And that's a big part of printmaking. Has definitely, it's present everywhere. When you go into a gallery, I can see, I can deconstruct how something is made pretty quickly, and but it'll be called, acrylic on canvas, and I'm like, that's a silk screen on canvas. What are you talking about? But it will be acrylic on canvas. So there's not quite owning it, yet, and I think it's much better, from my opinion, in India, where a printmaker, a very committed printmaker, doing traditional mediums on paper is much more accepted. The woodcut is phenomenal in India. I think that's, and etching are amazing, but I think the U.S. has not quite made that, and a lot of it is scale. India, like in the U.S., galleries, museums, they really want scale. And that can be challenging. And so artists, I think the mixed media print is how people are getting their work more and more accepted.
I'm Catherine from Louisiana. I didn't realize I pressed the question button. I'm trying to get stuff off of the photo thing. But I find all this very interesting and what y'all are sharing and the different concepts for the technique of printmaking. I myself have been trying to get out of my box, so to speak, to try to push the limits of the plate and of the medium itself, trying to intertwine like different things with the medium, like with gold leafing or embezzlement, or I'm probably using the wrong word. But I find this very nice, and thank y'all for allowing me to listen in on y'all's ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So Judith Elizabeth has a question. Is that I hope this is not already told, but Anita Jung began your career not.
No, my career was very traditional in many ways. I began working, I went to undergrad and then I went to graduate work, and then I graduated in 1990, and then I was teaching. I worked at Tandem Press in the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and then I worked at Off Jones Road Press. So I was printing, and I was running classes about printmaking without a press, and then I taught at Illinois State University as a sabbatical replacement in 1991, and just progressed from there. So I was 30 when I started my art career.
So Rajesh has a question. Rajesh, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, hi. This question is for Anita. Anita, you have been visited India on Fulbright scholarship, and you have been in many places of different parts of India also. And you also do printmaking and all practices, you know about it. My question is, when you visited India, what difference you find in Indian printmaking and the US printmaking? And okay. Sorry.
Well, I think there's more similarities than differences. I do think that there is a woodcut movement, which is done a lot here, but the way that the colored woodcut is approached, going dark to light, is really interesting. It's pretty unique to India and basically the Baroda area. I think that the figurative narrative element is very strong. Indian artists need to know how to draw very, very well. In America, in the US, many artists, a lot of artists who gravitate towards printmaking do so because they do love to draw, and drawing, without drawing by itself is difficult, I think. So I think that people who love to draw in America do tend to gravitate towards printmaking. But I was very impressed at how well educated artistically artists are in India. That was super impressive to me. But I think that people are grappling with just being in the world, and it's become, with the internet, as much as there's parts of it I hate, but it's also just, we make something yesterday and it's instantly, through Instagram everywhere. And so I think there's a lot of exchanging of ideas. But I've really loved learning about the history of print and about the Bengali masters. And the radical act of doing the figurative narrative, during the British occupation, asserting Indianness through art and sort of supporting that was, that's a really compelling story.
Okay, the next question again is from Judith. How do you both look at younger artists from the academy in comparison to the older artists?
I think when I go a lot for judging and I go a lot to art universities, I'm seeing some fantastic prints being made, technically sound, aesthetically beautiful, and very strong in their contents in India. Like what Anita just said, woodcuts are fantastic. Beautiful woodcuts have been done. So I think they are more ambitious. And since they have presses at home, they are able to do that. And now recently, I mean, I haven't seen a mezzotint for years. So recently I've seen 2 3 young printmakers getting into mezzotints and doing beautiful works. So I think that is there. And of course the seniors, I mean, they were excellent, whether it was KG Subramaniam, Jyoti Bhatt, or Anupam Sood, who, I mean, their prints are like, we need not uh, comment on it. I mean, they were fabulous. I just have one point which is probably out of context to this. Can I add it? Okay, that is, there is a little misconception in our country from the beginning till today that printmakers should only do prints. Okay, that's fine. That's one school of thought, which is fine, and I respect that. But you cannot ignore. You have to see the quality of prints which are being made. I mean, if for example, can you ignore Salvador Dali's lithographs? We can't ignore it. They are outstanding. They are fabulous. They're probably better than many of the printmakers' works. So he was a painter. Or we can say like even Picasso or even KG Subramaniam's lino cuts and wood cuts. So I think this has to be removed from the mind of not the galleries. Galleries don't have this problem. I think it's mostly the printmakers who have a little traditional thought have to accept. I'm not sort of like forcing, but I'm just saying think about it. So this is something which I have been a little victim of, because whenever a list is being made of printmakers, I'm shooed away. Oh, she does painting, she does mixed media. Oh, no, 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 she's out. Okay, fine. But have a look at the prints. If the quality is not there, that's fine. So I think that has to be sort of like sort of be hammered into the heads of a lot of people. That's the point which I really strongly make every time I give a talk on prints. Thank you.
Thank you,
But
Kanchan. The
that is
next,
an interesting point. I know I ran into that a lot when I was in India and I was trying to track down certain artists, and I was told, oh, they're not making prints anymore. Like Dimple Shaw, like people were like, oh no, she's just doing performance art.
Yeah.
And Dimple Shaw's doing stunning woodcuts, and she sees her performance practice as very integral. And that then these prints come out of that, and that speaks to, you can't always be doing a performance. And so she does these amazing, huge woodcuts. They're beautiful.
Right.
right. So, Anita, Lena has a question for you. She wants to know that what are some of the ways in which you eliminated the use of the press?
A lot of the monoprint, trace monotype is a wonderful technique. Paul Klee obviously did that. He called them oil transfer drawings. Doing that, doing things where, like rolling up a Xerox, making a paper plate lithograph, basically. Using gel medium to transfer magazine images. A lot of that kind of processes. And then the found print, going to craft stores in the US, we have craft stores and things where stencils, like I just go crazy about, in India with all the Diwali little silk screens sold on the street, and, which I don't think, people are like, yes, this is a silk screen. You put powder through it. It's like, people, it's part of that. But for me, it's like, wow, this is so cool, So things like that, like just looking at how how we make prints. There's wonderful artists who there's an artist in Chicago named Stan Schelleberger, and he's a wonderful performance artist, and he will put sandpaper on his shoes and walk on wood all day.
Oh.
And then he'll take that board and print it. Like, who's to say that that's not, you can make a print in so many ways. Our fingerprints are, it's so around us. It's about seeing it and recognizing it and taking it that extra, step. And all of a sudden it's like, bam, wow.
So in relation to this, taking that extra step, I have next question from Nikhil Purohit. He is asking, how has art history been taking note of the shifts and experiments in printmaking in your respective regions and as observed by you?
I just feel in India, I think this needs to be shaken up a little, because the people who set up the syllabus, especially in universities and schools, I don't think they're much aware. There are few, I'm not saying all, there are few. I mean, Baroda has a good history, Shantiniketan has a good history, but I think they need to sort of go beyond just, sort of Bengal school or other schools. They should talk more about the contemporary. So contemporary is not touched much in art history, whether it's printmaking or whether it's painting. So I think that needs to be, and unfortunately, the people who set it up, I think they just need to voice their opinions, I feel.
That's a very true answer. Anita, would you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think it's really exciting what's happening in printmaking and how it's evolving and changing. What's interesting is what Kanchan was saying about, mesotint and how things will cycle back, and people become very, very interested in some very, antiquated medium, but it's changed. It's been altered. They'll become a new kind of spin on it. I mean, we work with 500-year-old technology every day, and yet we're also in the 21st century. And so seeing that colliding is really exciting. And, it's interesting to watch all of my colleagues being so concerned about AI, artificial intelligence. And
Yes.
the artists are like, bring it. Come on, let's go. Let's play. Let's do this. And so it's really, funny. They're always about plagiarism and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, we just call it appropriating. So it's okay. So I feel very privileged in those ways. And I'm also very biased because I'm very excited about, to me, I have felt that printmaking is such an intersectional medium, because it is sculpture, it is painting, it is all these things, and so I have always taken it as permission, and gotten in trouble every now and then, but it's okay.
I think, Anita, you're maybe it's luckier there, but here I feel very often I'm approached by PhD students and master students who want to take my interview. But their questions are so basic, so basic. I mean, whether it's woman artist, woman printmaker, or IPG, it's like set form. So I think, when they come, I just say, okay, sit down. I'm going to give you my peace of mind. So I try in my small way to whatever I can give. But I think, like, for example, place like Allahabad or Kurukshetra, I mean, I think things need to be changed there. Probably they're more aware in the bigger cities, That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, I found the students that I met in India just were very excited and very hungry, and of course I was there like 5 minutes after the pandemic, which was just so horrible for students, especially, printmakers. It really did force them to become creative, thinking differently, but just to work and very receptive and open, and
that's good. You were lucky.
And I think too, it's what happens after grad, after you get out. Sometimes these things take time, like I think school can be so much about filling the toolbox. And it's not so much this idea of we come out of graduate school fully formed, I think is And then that's what we do forever. To me, that's the scary thing, is if somebody gets too much success too soon, they're going to start repeating themselves. You know, I'm always like with my students, it's like the worst thing you can do, the only thing you can plagiarize is yourself. And that's when it's really bad, you know, but it's hard. If you're selling, it's hard not to just keep doing that thing that is bringing you fortune. But, you know, that takes real bravery sometimes to throw a wrench in your own practice.
Right.
Thank you. To extend the question further, how theorists are taking the conversation further? The question is for Anita. Is the representation equitable to other forms of art practice?
Well, a lot of the theory now is, you know, very much in the United States is on social practice and a more of a performative way. It's really about trying to create art in the everyday, you know, sort of, you know, which seems very natural, moving out of, you know, I think Fluxus and Dadaism are becoming much more of interest. It's very difficult in the US to get any kind of funding that doesn't have some kind of engagement or educational component to it. It's unfortunate because it does seem like it's always this like justification thing, but it's also beneficial because you learn through teaching. I've learned through teaching. So the theories are, you know, they're ever evolving. I think it is acceptable in the US, in the undergraduate and the graduate level. It becomes very blurred. And sometimes, you know, I lament like, oh, but will they ever learn how to do this? You know, spend so much time learning process. But students it's very simultaneous where they're learning concept and process at the same time. You know, and for each individual, you know, some students are going to really get into that and they're going to want to become a master printer, and other students are going to be like, oh, I just need to know this little thing, and they're going to run with that. And so giving that space to be individualized, but also making sure people have enough tools in the toolbox to assist them, you know, 10 years out. As a professor, I'm always trying to teach 10 years out. You know, what does this person need? How do they get to the next 10 years and still be a maker? That's what I care about.
So the next question is, have printmakers themselves ghettoized printmaking into an exotic craft, not treating it as a language?
Creating it as a language.
Well, I think, you know, when I came up, my whole education was in the 80s. So, but it was sort of like you were supposed to pick a camp, you know, like pick your camp. You know, you're either you're an etcher, you're a lithographer, you do relief, you know. And I did it all. And I was, you know, it was sort of my group that kind of just was like, well, that's just not the rules I want to adhere to. And so, yeah, so I think sometimes we do, you know, somebody says, oh, pick up this cinder block and carry it with you in life. And it's really heavy. And all of a sudden one day you put it down and it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And so, yeah, we do that. I don't think it's just printmakers. I think everybody does that. Painters who think they have to work on canvas. There's a lot of things that you could paint on. You know, sculptors that think, you know, and we see this. I have a wonderful colleague, Isabel Barbusa. She teaches a class that is called Making Art on the Edge of the Landfill, all about repurposing. It's all, you know, their art store is the resale shop in town, and they're making art with things that just already exist in the world. You know, and we saw that from the Dadists, and sort of Duchamp taught us about, you know, urinal can be sculpture. And so I think that what I like is that there is enough space for somebody who wants to do a beautiful, exquisite mezzotint or a beautiful, exquisite lithograph. And then there's somebody who's going to, you know, show, you know, a bunch of lithographic stones in a studio, and that's going to be their presentation on printmaking. I think that's so exciting that we have all those choices right now.
I mean, very recently I saw this show, Threshold, by Shaurya, who teaches in Chicago, SAIC, he had done 3D prints. Now, for me, to be honest, it was a very new term. I had heard about it, but I had not seen it. So I was very curious, and I don't know. I mean, I think it can be debated and it can be talked about whether that's. I think one of the question next asked is about sculpture. I mean, can prints be 3D? Can it be AI? So this is something which time will tell. We are doing it. Many of us are getting into it. Many younger people are getting into it. So I think time will tell. It's probably too early, I feel, to sort of give a response to it. What do you say, Anita? I don't know.
Well, printmaking has always, its origins are in industry. It always has been. It was never created as an art form. It has always followed industry. And we have seen this throughout history over and over again. The monoprint was not accepted. The photo not accepted.
Yeah.
On and on. No, not accepted. And then all of a sudden it's like, why isn't that accepted? Of course that's accepted,
Yeah.
3D printing it's a computer interface that happens to then render and prints in 3D. They're so cool to watch because it just goes back and forth, up. And then all of a sudden there's a sculpture there. So, and with Shaurya's work, and he's a friend of mine too, his work is highly, it's conceptual. It's about the idea, and the object is just artifacting his research and his ideas and his thinking. And so, but it's interesting, how when you look at art history, oh, no, the guilds, oh, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And printmaking, it manifested, came out of the Crusades. It was the intersection between acid from the Middle East and paper from China. And then people, the guilds in Europe, it was a way of showing how you engraved your armor and your plates. And so it was like frottage, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, then an artist came along and said, oh, wait a minute, I think I could do something with that. So, and that's just, I think we're going to keep seeing that history repeat itself.
Right.
Right. One last question from Shujoy Mukherjee. Often nitty-gritties or achievements become more pronounced than the work itself. But I do understand as a printmaker, technical negotiations are often inevitable. But we often stop thinking beyond that, looking into a larger printing culture.
I just, Anita, go ahead.
Well, I think that the technical, being able to do what you want is super important, but I do think we learn a lot from our accidents and our mistakes.
Yeah.
I think our failures teach us more than our successes. And I think that a lot of different techniques, just like in the sciences, come from failures. It's like, oh, and then it's like, can I repeat that failure? Can I repeat that accident? And then all of a sudden, that's a new process. And so I think, but it's learning how to do something well, and that really benefited me. I have to admit that I learned how to do things, and then I learned I could work outside the box. A lift ground is rolling up a Xerox. That's what taught me how to do paper lithography. That's what taught me how to make prints without a press. It was learning these processes and then realizing, wait, what happens if I stop that process here? Why do I have to, soft ground reintroduced me so much to the traced monotype technique. So I think that I think you don't want ignorance to become an excuse. I think being able to make decisions and from choices rather than falling back on what you don't know how to do. I'm constantly challenging myself to learn new materials, new mediums. And I know I'm not, I know, like, people will get upset that are really good. Like when I go and work with block printers in India, which I haven't done a lot of, but they don't, I'm kind of like, oh, let's put this here, and they're just sort of like, wait a minute. No, we do not do that. I'm like, oh, okay. What do we do? And, they'll rein me in real quick.
I agree with Anita that there are, in printmaking, that's the charm. There is always an element of surprise. The accidents that we do while while working on the plate, I mean, we can cleverly sort of make use of it. And like Anita said, that if you want to repeat it, sometimes you don't know how it came. It was an accident. So these are the elements which are there in printmaking, which cannot be in painting or other medium. So that is the charm and the element of surprise, that when you pull out the print, I mean, it's like, oh wow, because it's a totally different thing that you had probably imagined. That's the charm of it, I think.
Yeah, I have yet to make a piece from start to finish, that was a beautiful success. Always. It's always been like a horrendous mess that I've had to fix. And it's like, and I have to like internally, like, okay, you're the artist. You need to fix this. This is your job. Like, you need to go to your job and do your work and fix that. Because it's always like a big mess.
So both of you, I just have a last question. Often people who are not from a printmaking background or haven't practiced the element of prints, they feel that it's too technical an art form, and the also the element of editioning adds further perplexity to it. So many times they feel that it is not such a spontaneous medium, and too many of technical nuances. So there isn't too much of aestheticism involved with it, and there is a lot of misconception around the medium, which somewhere also creates barricades in acceptance.
I
So, what would you have to say in this regard?
I do agree to a certain point that the technicalities are a lot. Like I said, that due to certain circumstances, I was not able to do my prints. But at the same time, I was very frustrated because I was a printmaker and I wanted to do prints. So I think that is something which we have to accept. There are I mean, a painting you can do fast, a drawing you can do fast, but in a print, so then I think it's again time management. When I do my plates, I just do prints. Like for probably like 2 months, I'll join Gary or I'll join somebody's studio and I'll do plates, bring it home, work on it. And because of health problems, I'm not able to do the editioning, the full editioning. So I hire a young person because it's good pocket money for them. And for me, with my shoulder problem, I cannot do the editioning. I do the plate fully, totally on my own. I don't let anyone touch it. I do the final print myself. But when it comes to editioning, then you do need help. I think somebody here asked that question about what are the issues that you faced as a woman. So this could be one. Also, while you were pregnant, you could not do it when the child was born. So these are things which one accepts with time. But still, there are people who have continued. I have continued. Anita has continued as a mother, and so have you, Moutushi.
Yes, definitely. Uh, so Shujoy has one last question. There is an alchemic excitement without its performance repositioning. So we, we had a very interesting session today. Lot of questions we had, and it's time for us to near the end of this conversation. So, one of the observations overall I feel is that printmaking as a medium always is towards exploration. Would you like to ask a question? Then please be on, switch on your video.
Sorry, I kind of, it was a mistake, but working through the entire conversation, I was just thinking how printmakers are so much given into alchemic excitement of printing itself as a practice, but they never kind of, think of it as a performative trope. I was just thinking of somebody like Bartolomeo Togo or somebody like Shuranjan Basu in his Forge workshop. So I was just kind of thinking that how do we go beyond that and kind of, integrate it into a larger culture and make it more evident as a contemporary language? So that was more of my question. I was trying to ask the two artists because I also go through the same tribulations as an artist myself and as a printmaker. And often people are more excited with the results than with the very performative act that we keep on doing to get a result. I think, yeah, this is something I believe printmakers can always look through. I was just thinking aloud, nothing more than that.
I think IPEP is a platform where we need more such platforms. So it's in a country like India, it's they can only cater to a small audience. So I think we need more. So I think IPEP is doing a fantastic job. We need more people to join in. We need more organizations like this. Only then the word can be spread. I don't know if
Yeah, well, Vita Shaw has done such a great job with CHOP in terms of really inviting people to bring in new processes and experimentation. And she does go to national conferences and things. And I think, I would love to see India develop some of that, and I think this organization is sort of starting that, bringing these people together from all these different areas around the country and then the nation to have these conversations. Because my professional organizations they really benefited me when I felt marginalized or like an outsider or less than. Being able to go to places like Southern Graphics Council International or going to the Mid-America Print Council or going to Impact conferences really helped me to sort of be with my tribe, being with people who spoke my language, even though they might be from all over the world. That really benefited me as an artist, and I think that IPEP is beginning that, and and people like Kavita Shah with CHOP has been trying to do that. So I'm excited to see how that's going to evolve. Like JKK and Jaipur, where Kavita was working and establishing that shop. So I think there's a lot of potential.
Yeah. So would Anita and Kanchan like to ask any question to each other?
I think we know
Would you
each other
have?
quite well. So we've already.
Look at all personal.
Uh, so it is indeed a very crucial point that Anita you have brought up, and something that we are very concerned for in IPEP, which is why we have decided on doing this paper publication. Tomorrow is the extended last date for abstract submission. So we look forward to have very, very meaningful discourses regarding printmaking practices and come up with publications by artists from all over the world. Because not just exhibiting, but also discussing and writing about these practices is very, very crucial to give weightage and credibility to the practices that are going on. So, printmaking has always been a medium of explorations and it will continue to be a medium of explorations right from the hand stamp prints in prehistoric caves to the AI. We have continued and we will continue further. I believe just as dry point engraving has still not gone out of fashion, in the same way, it will continue parallel to AI movements. And I'm sure that a newer direction will come in because whichever shape of art making, whether it is AI or whatever, one way or the other, it does have parallel elements of practices developing, overlaying one on other. So I'm sure it is only going to enrich our cultural heritage by the years that come. Thank you so much, Anita and Kanchan, for giving your valuable time to IPEP India. We are truly grateful.
Mhm.
And thank you all the audience for patiently being with us. We are coming to the end of our session 2 today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you.
thank you everyone. Just last urge before we conclude the session. Uh, we have tomorrow is the last day for sharing your abstracts for the call for papers. Uh, I have just shared the link in the chat, so please have a look at it. Uh, Here, it is not expected that it has to be a very academic paper, though you can certainly collaborate with as many theoreticians or academicians together to contribute to the purpose and put up your abstracts. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.